Do you ever feel stuck, like you're living your life on autopilot? Are you ready to shift into high gear and reach the success you so richly deserve? Welcome to the Play Big Movement podcast. I am your host, Sharon Lechter, entrepreneur, business strategist, and best-selling author. Playing big is not about settling for good enough or being comfortable. It is about reaching your highest potential and achieving your greatest success. Join me in my Play Big movement as I interview top experts in business, money, and entrepreneurship, all ready to serve you and to help you play big, be number one in your field, live your legacy, and create maximum impact. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast with Sharon Lechter. Today, I'm excited because I have a friend I've known for several years, and now we work together on various different projects, and I'm happy to have Carey Conley come with us today. Hello, Carey.
I am so honored to be here.
Well, what we want to talk today, because Carey has had an incredibly interesting life and one that has been a true roller coaster. And her work in coaching people today and helping people with their vision and understanding really what you want out of life. And I love you have a unique way of doing that, Carey. We're going to talk both about vision, and certainly your work in vision has helped you go through some personal tragedy, which I've also had. So I think I'd like for you to just share a little bit about, because you have a new book out, so I want to make sure we don't forget to talk about that. So give us a little bit of the Carey Conley story.
So I am from Denver originally, now live in Arizona, as you know. I grew up there. I met my husband in high school, and we went through college together. And when we graduated from college, we moved back to Colorado to raise our family. And my husband went into corporate sales and did really, really well. I went into marketing and advertising and just did not fit the 9-to-5 mold very well. Like you, I am super disciplined, very hardworking, but I didn't like people telling me when I could work, when I couldn't work, and how much vacation I could get. So at one of the jobs that I held, they had a woman come and speak one day. It was kind of like a staff development kind of day. And I don't remember what she talked about, Sharon, but I just remember watching her and being so inspired by her that I thought, I would really love to do that. So I asked her to be my first mentor. And she was the first person who said to me, you are never going to fit this 9-to-5 mold. You need to take a day, sit down, and write out everything you want for yourself. What do you want your life to look like? So sorry, my throat's dry. So I did that. And this was about 1988. I was about 26 years old. And on a legal pad of paper, because this was the 80s, I wrote out everything I wanted my life to look like. As much detail as I could give it. What I wanted my relationship with my husband to look like, where we were living, what kind of mom I wanted to be, what kind of values I wanted to instill in my kids. And then I started noodling some ideas around being an entrepreneur, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And wrote out several different things. One thing was that I thought I wanted to be with a company that allowed women in the skincare and health and wellness industry to be able to stay home and make a really great income. And then I wrote several different ideas, but in the last line, no kidding, I wrote that someday I thought I would want to help people with their vision and their goal setting. No idea where that came from.
What year was this?
This was about 1988.
Okay.
Very long time ago.
It's the power of visioning and vision boards, I think. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think when this is what I've kind of believed, Sharon, and you've heard me say this, that I believe what happened that day is because I got so still. I was listening to my own heart, and I was starting to co-create with God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And a lot was revealed to me that day. And so a few years later, I had my kiddos, and I got introduced to my first entrepreneurial gig was with the company called Arbonne. And so I stepped all into that and went all the way to the top of the company while I was raising my kids. I built a really large team of people. And the one thing I had to teach all of my leaders that came into the company with me was why they had to have a written crystal clear vision like I did. Because I knew if they didn't have it, they were going to quit. network marketing companies are lovely and there are a lot of rewards, but they're very challenging for a lot of people because there's a lot of personal growth and a lot of rejection.
And
And
that's why the successful ones have a lot of, and I say this lovingly, rah-rah events, because they keep
yes,
people inspired and motivated to keep going, because you do get a lot of no's. And so you got to kind of overcompensate that with fun and
completely.
excitement and awards and recognition, and
Yes.
keep the pomp and circumstance helps keep people engaged, right?
Correct. And it's a lot of vision building for them. They see other people earning it, taking trips, taking their family on a lot of trips, which I did with Arbonne. Painting the vision for them of what could be for them. But if they didn't have it themselves, it was going to be at a point where they were going to quit sooner than later. So about 7 or 8 years ago, when my kiddos left the house and we became empty nesters, I decided that I wanted to create some curriculum around what I'd been teaching all of those people. And so I started doing workshops on why you need to have a vision, why that vision that I wrote on paper was everything. I have a fun way, as you know, of helping people get it out of their head and onto paper, because it's a game changer. Most people have it rolling around in their head, and that worked. And so I ended up speaking and coaching more and more. And my first book I launched about 4 years ago, Vision is Victory, is a workbook for people who can't get to a live workshop or whatever. So that's what I've been doing for the past 7 or 8 years, is creating a whole different brand around vision, why you have to have one, and how to get it on paper.
Well, I love it. And I think, from a standpoint of, we're looking, this is coming out in early 2020. And so the next decade, one of the things, I just launched the Refire program, because, sometimes you have to close one door for other doors to open. And sometimes you make that decision, and sometimes it's made for you.
Correct.
A tragedy or a correction in your life. And
yes.
And I know you've just written another book, and it's about the tragedy that you've experienced in your life. So I want to share that anybody watching and listening, we've all had things stop us in our tracks, and some of us more severe than others. And you all know that I lost my son now 7 years ago, and it changes your world unbelievably. And but when you wake up and realize that you're still here for a reason. And this is something that really is a huge bond between Carey and me, because you've seen a similar loss. I don't know if you're going to share that.
Sure.
Your book.
Yeah. So in July of 2014, I lost my husband to suicide. And then 3 years later, I lost my son. So now that's been 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So in the past 5 years, my daughter and I have been through a lot. And so we co-wrote a book this year. We started last February and launched it on November 11th, which would have been my son's 28th birthday. And it's called Keep Looking Up. So in the book, we share our story and we share what happened, but mostly it's 11 chapters of what we've learned through this journey that we think will help other people if they're going through their own adversity. Or, this is the biggest thing we've been hearing from people who've been reading it, is not only do they see how it will help them or them get through what they're getting through now or something that might come, but a lot of people have been saying that it has shed a lot of light for them on how to help friends that are going through something. Because we talked a lot about all sorts of things, things from what worked for us at the memorial service to, what works for her, her healing and my healing. And in each chapter, we share our perspective. So I talk, and then my daughter Laurel talks. Which has also been great feedback from people that there's two different perspectives going on. So yeah, it's kind of, it's great for anybody going through anything, but it's also good for group discussions.
Mm-hmm. And I love it because, well, love is probably the wrong word for me to use, but both you and I have experienced people talking to us about how strong we are. And even though we go through something like that, there are oftentimes, and certainly this weekend for me, because it was the anniversary of his death, there are triggers that take, and you don't even know when that's going to happen.
Yes.
Something, a friend of mine sent me some yellow flowers yesterday, and it just sent me off the edge because that's what he used to send me. And so you just never know. It takes you right back to that place of trauma and grief. And yet what we've learned and continue to support each other as well as others, and through your book is helping other people, is, God doesn't give us more than we can bear. And I hate that saying, but it really is true, because
It is.
you realize you have a choice. You have a choice. You can stay in grief and make everyone around you miserable as well.
Right.
Or you can realize that you're still here, and the grief that you have suffered and survived, and not survived, or surviving is probably the better term, because that grief is still there, can serve to help others that are experiencing it. And I know initially it was horrible for me, because I had so many people came and wanted to console me, but then before they even finished the hug, they started telling me about their drama, their trauma, and everybody else's problems. And it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Yes, I think we talk a little bit about that in the book, about how hard that is, that you are trying to keep your own self together, that every time we'd have to share the news with somebody, and watch them go through the whole shock and their own grief and their own tears, it sends you right back into it. And yeah, if they don't realize that how much energy you are holding right now to try and keep yourself together, they sometimes want to use some of your energy. And yeah, it was hard, very hard. We learned how to, we coined a phrase in the book that a lot of people are quoting now. We have what we call our super safe people.
Yeah, I like that term. That was good. Yeah, I like that part of the book. Also, I think you guys respected each other, and this is something for my husband and I as well. And I didn't really intend for this podcast to circle on the grief side, so we're going to move to something a little lighter in a moment. But the love you and your daughter have for each other allowed you each to deal with that grief the way you needed to. Same thing with my husband and I. My husband needed to hide away and be alone. I needed people around me to lift me up. And it was the love of each other and the respect and allowing each other to deal through that grief in the way we needed to. Has helped us keep together and keep looking forward.
And that's a blessing, Sharon, because
keep looking up.
It's a blessing, because a lot of times when this happens to a couple, they don't make it through it. So you're very fortunate that you have that.
Well, it's one day at a time. It is so one day at a time.
Yes, it is.
It's things happen, and it just the triggers happen for each of us at different times. And but for us, it's helped to have grandchildren that keep our focus on the newer and the younger generation, and knowing that we can help support and influence them. And I know for you, since the loss of your son, have had a wedding, your daughter's married, and now she's pregnant, expecting. Correct. So it's all about new life and new opportunities, right?
Yes, we're very, very excited about this baby boy coming in May.
So, and I wanted to ask you, because I think I'm from the outside looking in, even though we're very close, I believe that your visioning work with others and for yourself has helped you through this. Talk a little bit about that.
So many people have said to me, so what you've been through has brought you to this place of wanting to talk more about vision and purpose. And I said, no, actually, it's the opposite. I believe that I was given that vision of what I was going to be doing so many years ago to prepare me for this moment. And because God knew what was coming. And so I am so rooted in understanding why vision is everything for people, not just professionally, but personally, that now I know why I've been called to do this. And now I'm more passionate about it than ever.
And I mean, just this is from an outsider's perspective. I think it's really helped you get through the grief you've had, because you've had that. It's like that is, a sailor that gets blown off course in a storm. As long as they know where they're going and they can re-navigate, they just set a new course to get where they're going. And that's the process you help people determine what that ultimate goal and vision is.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when I do workshops and I speak, I talk about my top 10 reasons why you have to have vision first. And one of the reasons is I tell people it's the anchor in all the storms. That when you really are rooted in your vision and your purpose, you may drift for a little while, like you did. Sharon took some time off. I took a year off after my son died to kind of, get through some stuff and come back up and see where I was going to go. But I didn't drift very far. I knew all along that I was going to be called to take this to a whole other level. And so, yeah, my purpose has gotten me through a lot. And I think that if more people knew their purpose sooner, it not only fixes a lot of the little things in life, but it really does help you stay rooted when you're going through some tough stuff.
So when we're talking about playing big, you are in a program right now. You are just about to turn the key on a major program, online marketing and
Yes.
online programs, and being able to share your knowledge and about visioning. So for the people that are watching and listening, Carey, maybe 2-3 points of the importance of visioning and where you're going.
Sure. So the importance of vision is, again, for personal and professional reasons. So some of those reasons I tell people, these are some epidemics we're dealing with. Most people right now have a boundary issue around their time, their money, and who they spend it with. And the reason for that is because we have a world, especially because we can Google anything and be anywhere, and they're all good things. But without having a vision and knowing where we're going, we tend to do a lot of really good things instead of the one best thing. And so when people have a vision, when they're making decisions.
Hold on, repeat that. They tend to do a lot of really good things instead of the one best thing.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. Busy, busy, busy. We're all so busy, aren't we?
Yes.
And busy doesn't necessarily mean we're intentional with our time.
Mm-hmm.
It means that we're doing a whole lot of stuff that looks really good on paper, but it's not moving us forward personally or professionally. So when we have a really clear vision of where we're going, it's very easy to make better, faster decisions every day. The other epidemic
busy doesn't mean intentional. Ooh, I love these nuggets.
Yes, thank you. So there's that. Another epidemic, and I know these because, of course, I do a lot of workshops and I speak in front of a lot of people and I network a lot, is that we have a real focus problem. I ask people, how good are you at staying focused on the intentional things every day? Or do you get distracted? Are you all over the place? You're doing too many things. And 9 times out of 10, they all laugh at me and go, yeah, seriously have a focus problem, which means they're inconsistent.
Yeah, two people tell me, well, I have focus chaos. And I said, that's not focus.
It's not going to work. Yes. So consistency, as you and I both know, Sharon, it's everything. It's everything in life. If you're consistent in your relationships, your diet, your exercise, and the same thing with your business, you don't need to work a ton. You just need to be really, really focused when you sit down to do your work. So that's another problem. The other issues, of course, I've mentioned are people aren't leading themselves every day. They're not managing their emotions very well. So on and on the list goes. And so what I do when I work with people is I get them very specifically to think with dates. So I ask them to think, like if you and I were in a workshop right now, to get out a piece of paper and at the top of it, date it as if it's 3 years from today. And then right after that, I ask them to put down some ages. Their age, their kids' ages, their grandkids, parents, grandparents, because time and aging are non-negotiable.
Yeah, we did this at 2 business retreats with you, Carey, and it was very impactful. It was impactful for me as well as for all the people that were attending. It's like, I'm sitting there going, oh, 3 years, then 3 years for my husband. Oh my goodness. And then 3 years for the grandchildren. It's a big impact. Yeah.
It's a big shift,
mm-hmm.
especially with kids, because about every 3 to 5 years, you can see there's going to be a lifestyle shift coming because they're older.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. Most people, as simple as this exercise is, have never done it. They've never sat down and thought, what do I want my life to look like as if it's 3 years from today, with how old I will be, my parents will be, my kids will be. And so when I get them to do that, I then ask them to write out in great detail what they want to create it to look like as if it's 3 years out. Because then we can now reverse engineer it. So we can take, if that's what the vision is for 3 years, let's talk now, and I do this with my clients, and I know you do too, what 2020 is going to look like. broken into quarters, months, weeks. You can grid it all the way down to knowing, again, intentionally every single day what you should and should not be doing that lines up with the vision and where you're going.
That sounds a little overwhelming to some people watching and listening, but just starting with the process is a huge step in the right direction, because just thinking about where you're going to be in 3 years is part of your visioning process. Do you want to be where you are today? More than likely not. And so if you don't want to be where you are today, let's establish a process of where you want to be. You probably don't want to be worse off financially. My guess is you want to be better financially. So how are you going to get there? What's your happiness scale is, where your relationship, your family, and all of those things. We talk about the life wheel. So I talk about not just your work and your finances, but your family life, your relationships, your health, all of those things. And certainly for me, when we add 3 years to my life and my husband's, health becomes an even bigger concern.
Yes.
In your 60s and 70s. So it's sobering, but it's also a good way to be intentional. And I know a lot of people, I will tell you, after losing my son, there was no intentional stuff going on for several years for me. I was just coasting, living in neutral. And I see a lot of people around me that are.
Correct.
So, your strength through what you went through, and people think I would have been very strong. Well, there are lots of times when I had no strength whatsoever. I continued in my faith, and I think my faith is really what carried me through, as well as all of my girlfriends. God's gift to the woman is her girlfriend. So
yes,
but it's also having that vision. And for me, I'm probably going to blow your advice here, Carey, but for me, it was almost an anti-vision. I'm looking at, okay, if I decide to retire in 3 years, what in the world am I going to be doing?
Right.
I'm sitting on the couch watching TV. That was not a vision I wanted.
Right.
And so it jolted me into making that decision to refire and to launch the Play Big movement and to play big again. And so it was almost like a reverse kick in the to say, wait a minute, that's not the future I want. So let's figure out what I do want.
That's a really important point that you bring up, Sharon, because after my son died, I had a choice of either to stop altogether and completely go and, retire, do nothing, or go in a whole different direction, create something completely different. But at the end of the day, I knew in my heart, and all of my people that are those super safe people that have been through with me, through everything with me, they all looked at me and said, that's not possible for you, right? You know what you're called to do. You just need to give yourself some time. And little by little, I started putting things back in place. So, and I'm very sure of my calling and what I do. And I know this is what, it gives meaning to my husband and my son's life, that I'm able to use this situation and use it for good. And I know it's what they want. Mm-hmm. So we have, it's not my inner strength. It's my faith, like you. And I also am very, very clear that I'm being powered by a lot of angels.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely. They're there. So Carey, before you're going to hang in here for a little bit for a second recording for the private Facebook group. So if those of you have not joined the private Facebook group, the Play Big Movement by Sharon Lechter Facebook group, please do. It's free, and we would love to have you join us. People that have really dedicated to be number one in their field, live their legacy, and create maximum impact. But Carey, CareyConley.com, is that how people can find you?
Yes.
And Carey Conley on Facebook.
Yes.
Where else? LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, Instagram is Carey.Conley.
Okay. Wonderful. Excellent.
Yeah.
So last words of wisdom and advice for our folks that are out there ready to play big.
I think the hardest thing for people, Sharon, is there's always some sort of fear around it. And I always tell people, if you're waiting for the fear to go away, it's never going to happen. If you're waiting for the confidence to show up, to go out and finally do it, that comes after the vision first. You've got to have a vision that you want so, so bad that no matter what happens, no matter how big the fear is, you're willing to push through it. It's the only thing I know that's helped me get through growing 2 businesses and a lot of times that I wanted to quit and not play big, is you've got to want it bigger than anything else.
And I love that. I think that's fantastic. And we will close on that note. But from my perspective, it's also, that vision is also your definiteness of purpose, as we talk about it. And that definiteness of purpose, as I've shared before, is what gets me out of the bed in the morning. And it takes it outside of yourself. When your vision and your purpose is big enough, it makes it that you are an instrument for that vision and purpose. And so therefore it gives you that motivation and inspiration to get up and keep going.
Yeah.
So
because it's not about you.
I appreciate it.
You.
Thanks for hanging in there. We're going to be back in just a moment. Thank you for listening to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast. Please subscribe to iTunes and leave us a review, as well as join us in other areas of social media, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Sharon Lechter, and for Facebook, author Sharon Lechter. Thank you so much and have a fabulous day.